and wearing the Illuminati owl crown.
Illuminati owl? Is that like the Tootsie Pop owl?
Come up with the number 41. Kobe Bryant was...
Take the year 1999, flip it upside down, take off the 1. What do you have? 666, Mark of the Beast.
Rothschild's Island. I don't even know who that.
Here we go. The second you hear Rothschilds, you know they're going into some anti-Semitic garbage.
Bible like that. That's probably what happened to Atlantis and shit
I was
like
just
that.
about to say Atlantis. It would make sense.
You can't back up a fictional story by referencing other fictional stories. Yes, hello. My name's Jason Louv, and I am a 32nd degree Freemason. That's right, I am privy to all the secrets of the world, all the innermost workings of the Illuminati. Me, Jason Louv. And in this video, I'm going to be looking at some of the most insane conspiracy videos we found on TikTok in the last few weeks. And this is going to be a lot of fun. So check this out. This is the actual honest-to-God newspaper from San Diego on the day that JFK was assassinated. My dad saved this, and I recently moved, and when I was cleaning out my stuff, discovered it. History unfolding. These are the actual original newspapers. And this is a magazine clipping of the findings of the Warren Commission, which was the government commission that looked into the assassination. Oh no. Oh God. Everything is impermanent in this world. That looked into the assassination of JFK and determined that there was no conspiracy and that Lee Harvey Oswald was the lone shooter. So why is that important? Well, it should be pretty obvious. The assassination of JFK was an event in American history that has spawned more conspiracy theories than probably any other, including 9/11. It was a moment in American history where something really deep happened, where people went from trusting their government and feeling like there was structure and order to some extent, to suddenly feeling like they were in a murky world that they didn't understand. And that's when conspiracy thinking really started. And it's one big arc from there to Alex Jones and beyond. So I'm going to show you a few other news articles from some key moments in American history from newspapers that I just happened to have saved. Here's one. Yes, we actually did go to space. It's not a conspiracy. I've actually met and worked for Buzz Aldrin because I'm, of course, in the Illuminati, and he was the second person to walk on the moon. And yes, he's real. Yes, we actually went to space. Yes, we actually walked on the moon. Okay, here's another one. This is one I actually bought. This is the newspaper on the day that the U.S. invaded the Middle East. Now that's something that's still relevant. And it's also something that has spawned unbelievable numbers of conspiracy theories, particularly in the Arab world. Now here's one that really set people off. I saved this from Election Day. Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. There you go, Barack Hussein Obama. Oh my God, he's not even an American citizen. He was born in Kenya. No, I obviously don't believe that. I believe we actually walked on the moon. In terms of who killed Kennedy, well, that's another story, but conspiracy theories, by and large, don't really help you in your life. Now, of course, I would say that, as yes, I actually am a 32nd degree Freemason and also Knights Templar. And what does that mean? It means I've eaten a lot of $10 chicken dinners with a lot of guys in their 70s and had a really, really good time sharing intergenerational wisdom and generally having a quiet and relaxing place to go to wind down that's not a bar. And that's about the extent of the secrets that you learn in the Freemasons. But like I said, I would say that, of course, since I clearly have an agenda here. But no, there's nothing sinister in the Freemasons. It's basically a retirement type thing. But look, you don't need me to tell you that conspiracy theories are everywhere. And these days, they suck. They're not cool. They are stressful. Back in the 90s, conspiracy thinking used to be really fun. I always thought of it as like a form of folk art. You know, we're talking about reading Robert Anton Wilson, who I'm sure many of you know, and if you don't, you absolutely should. He wrote a lot about conspiracies and the occult, and he took a very pragmatic and extremely humorous and sardonic approach to it. There's a signature, actually, just as a curiosity. That's pretty cool, huh? I found this for $10 in a used bookstore, and there it was. So as a borderline Gen Xer, back in the 90s, Gen X people loved conspiracy theories. We loved X-Files and, every Illuminatus trilogy, the Bob Wilson book, and all of that stuff, because conspiracy theories were fun. I actually used to work for the biggest conspiracy publisher in the early 2000s, Disinformation. So I've read a lot of conspiracy theories in my life. I probably read, certainly I've looked at all of the big ones, way too much. I've spent way too much time reading conspiracy theories in my life. Largely that's because the narrative of conspiracies always gets mixed up with the occult and with magic, because there's this kind of mythology like, oh, there's these people out there, high-degree Freemasons, who have occult secrets that they don't want us to know. Well, I'm a high-degree Freemason, and I tell you all the secrets of magic online, so that's a non-starter. So if there's a conspiracy theory out there, chances are I've read it or one just like it, because these things have themes. So-and-so's a Satanist, so-and-so is sacrificing people, so-and-so is controlling people through the media, and so forth. Been there, done that. So here's the thing. Although people often confuse the narratives of conspiracy and magic, I'm here to tell you they couldn't be more different. They couldn't be further apart. And this is what I mean. Conspiracy theories all have one thing in common, all of them, and that is your role in them. It's not what the conspiracy theories all are, but they have one thing in common, which is your role in them. And your role in all of those stories is disempowered, helpless, powerless, afraid, tiny. Is that how you want to live your life? I sure don't, which is why I don't let these freaking conspiracy theories into my head anymore. If you go around looking for conspiracy theories, looking into them, reading about them, trying to find all the latest ones on the internet, if you put your mind on looking into conspiracy theories, what are you actually doing? What message are you sending your mind? You're looking for reasons to not be empowered. What a cop-out. Just get a PlayStation, okay? Baldur's Gate 3 is awesome. Video games are better now than they ever have been. Weed is practically legal. If you want an excuse to do nothing, go get weed and a PlayStation, okay? You don't need an elaborate conspiracy theory to explain to yourself why your life isn't going quite the way you wanted it to. And I assure you, PlayStation and weed are way more fun. Now, in total contrast to that, if you spend your life looking for information about magic and the occult, what are you actually doing there? What message are you sending to your unconscious mind there? You're looking for power. You're looking for ways to be empowered. You're looking for tools, for skills, for, let's say in the case of meditation, just to take an example, for ways to be less agitated, to be more in control of your life. And that is what magic and meditation can do for you, and do for people who get into them. They more and more get a sense of agency and control over their life, to the extent that you can, because nobody can fully control life. It contains old age, sickness, and death, even if you are king of the world, okay? But meditation and magic essentially are very good at reminding people that they're in the driver's seat of their life and not somebody else. So one of the things about being a 32nd degree Freemason that is really, really, really fun is that you get to tell people that you're a 32nd degree Freemason, and then you get to see how they respond. Now, I've got all kinds of tricks I can pull out of my sleeve to get people's responses, to see where their mind is at so I can gauge their consciousness. One of them is saying that I'm into magic, and of course that is often interpreted as somehow I'm a Satanist or I worship demons or things like that, none of which is true. Or I can say I'm a Freemason, and they will inevitably, and we could be talking about totally otherwise rational people, launch into some paranoid delusion about how they're being controlled. And no matter how much I tell them things like, no, we pretty much just eat chicken dinners and talk about sports, then they'll say things like, well, you clearly aren't a high enough degree. There's circles within circles, bro. And yes, they have taught me how to shapeshift into a reptilian, but everyone knows that these days. So having spent a significant chunk of my life working as a proofreader for conspiracy companies, and then working on books related to it and things like this, here's the conclusion that I've come to. It's an egregore. And if you're a magic person, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. This inchoate image, almost like a god form of a secret society controlling everyone. It's a mental projection. It's a shadow projection, and it's a collective shadow projection that we can project all of our personal failings onto. Okay, that sounds innocuous, right? Like, okay, we have this kind of made up Santa Claus that's evil Illuminati controlling the world. It's silly that adults would believe in something like that, even if it is an unconscious mechanism. Hopefully, in becoming aware of that unconscious mechanism, you can release it. But that seems all silly, and it sounds like fun and games until it gets overlaid on actual people. What's an example of this happening in history? The Holocaust. And we can go right down the list. The Inquisition, the witch trials, the Satanic Panic in the 80s, this current QAnon badness. We can go down the list. But just to cut straight to the point, and because very, very unfortunately, it is topical again, let's just take the Holocaust. At the end of World War I, Germany was saddled with the blame for starting the war and given unpayable debts. This, combined with the economic collapse due to the stock market crash in 1929, created a period of unbelievable poverty, misery, and decadence in German society, of despair, of hopelessness, of misery, that we in some ways see mirrored in our own society today. It was called Weimar Republic. Inflation was through the roof, to the point where people had to take literally a shopping cart full of Deutschmarks to the store to buy a loaf of bread. Prostitution was widespread, including with lots and lots of people who should not have been doing that. And it was very, very grim. People had real problems. This was a society that had actually broken down. Into this came one frustrated artist from Austria who told people, it's not your fault that all of this has gone wrong. It's not because Germany went way too ham and was too aggressive in World War I. It's not because of German economic policy. It's not because of the German government. It's because the Jews have a secret conspiracy where they're in charge of America and Russia, and they're teaming up on Germany, and they collapse the economy, and they're the reason why we lost the war, and they're the reason why everything is so decadent and so on and so forth. What happened? This egregore, there's people out there that are responsible for my problems, got overlaid on actual people. In this case, Eastern European Jews who were by and large poor, already persecuted, and had nothing to do with any of that. I would say you don't need me to tell you what happened next, but these days it seems like it bears repeating. Over 6 million Jews were systematically annihilated in Nazi concentration camps throughout Germany, and then behind what later became the Iron Curtain, as well as in Poland. And here's the other thing about conspiracy theories that they all have in common, and why I mentioned the Holocaust. And I did not want this to be true, but it pretty much is. Close to all conspiracy theories terminate in anti-Semitism. Believe me, I did not want this to be the case. I mean, you can imagine a guy like me. I kind of actually wanted there to be lizard people running the world with magic powers and stuff like that, so that life could kind of be like a comic book and all that. No, a lot of this stuff is just masked anti-Semitism. It's not cool. It's not romantic. There's nothing neat about it. It's just this old tribal nonsense. But it does bear repeating because it shows you that conspiracy thinking is not necessarily innocent. It can start with curiosity. It can start just wanting to know information that has been hidden from you. But particularly as we've seen over the last 6-7 years with the rise of the whole alt-right thing, it's turned out to be really, really easy to just pipeline conspiracy people into becoming Nazis. And that's because Nazi thinking in general is extremely conspiratorial thinking. So it's not a hard slide to push people into, and that's incredibly dangerous. So here's the thing. Almost all conspiracy thinking is speculative. It's based on people's intuition and feeling, and often it's basically just people confusing causation and correlation, or seeing synchronicity and then thinking that because they're seeing synchronicity, that implies that like the government's sending them messages or something like that. There's often very little factual material in conspiracy theories, and this actually drives me crazy because it's not like there haven't been abuses of power by governments around the world. You can go, I make this point very often to people. You can go to the public library or just on Wikipedia and find out all about all the crimes of history, and you will never get to the end of them. There's no need to go hog wild making things up. Let's take 9/11, for instance. There's no need to go hog wild saying the Jews did 9/11 or like, jet fumes don't melt steel beams and that type of thing. And really, there's no point to focus on being a 9/11 truther at all. We know for a fact that the US government lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That was proven. Why aren't you focusing on that? No, we're focusing on something that's completely unsubstantiated, unproven, and again, for whatever reason, and none of this makes any sense because conspiracy theories don't make sense, leads to anti-Semitism. Go figure. Am I saying there's no conspiracies? No. Powerful people exercise power. And they don't tell you when they're doing it. That's just the way of the world. It's not some cosmic occult, all-encompassing thing. It's everyone is trying to exercise power, often in power groups, often in competing power groups, all the time. Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, the essence of all warfare is deception. And honestly, anytime like 2 or 3 people get together and plan to do something to get power, isn't that technically a conspiracy? So I believe that people organize into groups to get things done. What I don't believe is that there's some huge overarching conspiracy controlling everything. And honestly, all you need to do is look at the actual events of the news and of world history to see that even when people do come together and effectively work as teams to get things done, let's just say politically, it always still falls apart into disorder and decay. I mean, governments fall, empires have lifespans. Everything, as the Buddhists tell us, is subject to old age, disease, and death. Everything is impermanent and empty of any ultimate meaning. So, can people exercise power? Yes. Can people exercise power in groups? Yes. Can you exercise power? Yes, you can. Can you exercise power in groups? Yes, you can. Maybe think about that instead of being disempowered. And the other thing that I believe at this point in my life about conspiracies, as I've said, and which leads into the next part of the video, is people use them as a reason to persecute and demonize other people, simply to project their own failings and shadow on them. And this is incredibly dangerous in our society. We've seen it with QAnon, Pizzagate people who are ruining people's lives. We've seen it with the massive and extremely, extremely unfortunate surge in anti-Semitism since October 7th, 2023. We see it in the emphasis on things like fake news, and conspiracy thinking is now so rife in America, or at least is out in the open. The historian Douglas Hofstadter very famously referred to American politics as the conspiratorial way of politics, meaning that Americans have been conspiracy theory oriented for a long, long, long time, and that's how we tend to see the government. But this stuff is now so out in the open that it's now swinging elections, and not for the better. So for those reasons, and for many more, I feel that at this point in history, it is important to not entertain conspiracy theories and to simply confront them and shut them down when they show up. If they're true, well, by all means, show me the citation, but we should at the very least be fact-checking them and not immediately accepting every insane conspiracy theory that comes to us from social media. And now, in that spirit, my team has collected a bunch of conspiracy videos from TikTok to torture me with, and we're going to react to them.
Rihanna made a horrible mistake at her halftime show by reinforcing...
Okay, so this is this whole like paranoia that people have about people making that triangle hand symbol and thinking it means they're in the Illuminati. What are the chances that what do you think the chances are that some graphic designer or choreographer just like threw that into a video at some point, and like bloggers or social media lost their minds, like Christian social media lost their minds saying it's a conspiracy, and like that video got a ton of traffic, so they just kept doing it, and they know they must know it's a meme, and so they just kept doing it to rile people up and get more eyeballs and attention. I think that's probably quite likely. I mean,
crazy conspiracy theory
they probably think people taking this seriously is extremely funny.
That the Super Bowl is actually a live satanic ritual hosted by the elites to show off their power and influence.
Why do these conspiracy theories always enforce this idea of like caste system? Like they always enforce this idea that there's the elites And let's be honest, people are usually talking about the Jews when they say that. I mean, that's why so many of these actually become anti-Semitic if you look carefully. Or they say the globalist. It's like, but they're just Nazis, okay? I'm not saying that's what this video is. What I'm saying is, why is it that there's always this caste thing reinforced? Like, we're the peasants. They're the elites. Like, bro, this is not feudalism anymore. You don't need to, like, reinstitute that game in your mind. We live in the 21st century now. Like, if you live in America, your potential for vertical mobility is still immensely, immensely, immensely greater than anywhere else in the world. If you live here, you're good. You've made it. Okay? Maybe just apply yourself instead of obsessing over the Super Bowl.
With the peasants watching. And that every year the performer must flash the crowd a demonic or evil symbol of the Illuminati if they want to perform. Beyonce put up the same exact symbol to the crowd at
So the other thing that I think drives a lot of this is, in relation to the caste system thing that I said, is the entertainment industry is an exceedingly hard thing to get into. I mean, the most talented people from all over the world go to LA, and there's still only a tiny set of musical chairs for like the Robert De Niro's and Charlize Theron's of the world, right? I mean, or Beyonce, I mean, to become a big actor, actress, musician, director of some type is exceedingly hard as a human pursuit. And and one of the reasons is it's an incredibly fickle industry where the public is always changing their tastes, and it's very, very hard to keep up with that.
her Super Bowl halftime show and was all
Why do people want to be peasants so bad? I mean, this is kind of going back to my earlier point about conspiracy theories as being a way to disempower instead of empower yourself. I mean, why is this kid constructing a story in which he has less power than he did before he wrote it?
for the news the next day for it.
Conspiracy theorists believe that Beyonce signaled that she's part of a secret society bent on world domination.
Some claim that's just the Rock Nation symbol, but why would other celebrities who aren't affiliated with Rock Nation at all flash it? Stop making excuses
What excuse
for them.
did I make for
At
Rock
Justin
Nation?
Timberlake's 2018 show, he had a giant silhouette of Satan laughing at the crowd with his tail. They played it off like a guy playing the guitar.
I'm pretty sure that
At
was his
Madonna's
dong.
2012 show, she was moving her body to show symbolism and wearing the Illuminati owl crown on her
Illuminati owl? Is that like the Tootsie Pop owl?
head. This was insane. J-Lo's
Look at her
costume was showing
costume.
this evil satanic goat, and she was showing the horns with her head too. Look at her costume though. You can't tell me those are
I
two
can
eyes
tell you
and a
that.
nose
That's
and
not
antlers going
antlers.
up. The Weeknd's dancers are literally wearing such similar outfits to the exact same ones they would do in a satanic ritual. You can't tell me that whole thing didn't look demonic as hell.
It did not look demonic
Before I
as
tell you
hell,
the craziest
literally.
part, make sure you follow so you finally know the craziest conspiracy theories about each of these celebrities and be in the know and request to you want to see.
See, here's the thing. When you're a crazy Christian, everything looks demonic as hell. You know, like everything. I mean, look, if you're a fundamentalist Christian, you see Satan in everything, everywhere. Fundamentalist Christians see the devil appearing in the clouds and in rice and things like that. So
Have you ever wondered why the Super Bowl is even called the Super
No.
Bowl? Because if you just move over the B, it actually spells superb owl, which is the... Seriously though, the same exact demonic owl that Madonna was wearing on her head and one of the main species of animals that symbolizes satanic worship.
So this is actually an important point to make. So there's a big difference. There's lots of differences, but there's a huge difference between this type of, folk schizoposting. I don't know what we call this. It's kind of like folk synchronicity, synchromystic, whatever that stuff is. It's like, okay, like you're seeing connections, all right? Or rather you're making connections in your mind, like, oh, there's owl and superb owl. But the problem here, and occult people do this all the time, Kenneth Grant, the problem here is just because you saw the word owl in Super Bowl, somehow you make the leap that it means owl, let alone that it's the Illuminati owl, let alone that it's somehow connected to Madonna's hat. Like, just because you see a pattern doesn't mean it's actually there, okay? And in Generation Hex, my first book, one thing I said that I feel like I should consistently bring up is one of the biggest errors when assessing magic or the occult is making one-to-one analogies between things. I'm going to say that again. One of the biggest errors that you can make, and when I say error, I mean leading you into a world of delusion that sometimes people find it hard to come out of, is making one-to-one analogies between things. So what do I mean by one-to-one analogies? I mean, this means this, like owl equals Illuminati. This symbol has one meaning. If it had one meaning, you could just explain the meaning in writing or in mathematics. The reason symbols are important is because they resonate on tons and tons and tons of levels, and they can mean something different to you every time you look at them. Okay, so let's take an example. Let's just take the cross, okay? The cross means a lot of things. People layer their own meanings on it. People's attitude towards it may change throughout their life. Contemplating, for instance, the sacrifice of Christ at the age of 65 is probably a lot different than the age of 9, right? So symbols resonate deeply, deeply, deeply with the human unconscious. And that's why they are so powerful. That's why things like the sigil method work so well. But the reason that they're so powerful is they work at a higher level of communication, or a deeper level if you want to look at it that way. Symbols are like filing cabinets. They can hold tons and tons and tons of meaning. They can hold meaning at a lot of different levels depending on how you're looking at it. And so when people make this rookie mistake of X equals Y, you know, the most classic one is, bro, have you ever looked at the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill? Or, oh my God, a pentagram, an upside down cross, that means Satan. It's like, you know, that most people are at this level of consciousness. Most people aren't particularly capable of abstract thought at all, let alone symbolic representation of eternal spiritual truths. The problem throughout history has been that people who don't think abstractly or symbolically then get hold of symbolic texts. The classic example, by the way, the Book of Revelation, which can easily be read as a yogic text, it has been interpreted as a call to nuclear war by fundy crazies. So this is a problem. In fact, it is the problem. It is a core problem of humanity, which is people making one-to-one analogies or taking symbols literally and simply projecting what all this kid is doing is seeing a bunch of disconnected things. He's seeing a bunch of neurological noise out in the world and then projecting his own shadow and his own traits that he dislikes about himself onto this random neurological pattern and then making money off it by monetizing it on the internet. That's not information. It's just one person's unrecognized internal process. And until people can get over this idea that there's some like ultimate truth or symbols have some ultimate meaning or that there's some, God forbid, Satan or Illuminati controlling everything, they're never, ever going to be able to even approach esoterics. They won't even be able to approach it. And that's not Illuminati gatekeeping. It's just they're not using it correctly. It's like, it's not my fault if you didn't read the manual. Not because I'm the Illuminati trying to keep you from knowledge. Far from it. I'm constantly revealing the secrets at magick.me. It's not my fault if you didn't read the manual and you didn't invest the time to learn critical thinking. Here's an example. Okay, so this kid brought up the averse pentagram. We've talked about how that was related to the goat head before. But what does the devil actually mean? The devil's horned goat head. Yes, it refers to a goat, but what else does it look like? Now, this kid almost touched on this in the video, but of course he totally missed it. He almost touched on it when he talked about Beyonce's dress. The horned head of the devil is a caricature and demonization of a woman's uterus and fallopian tubes. Think about that when you think about these woman-hating, god-awful religions. And yes, all you have to do is talk to any psychotherapist to find out that there's a lot of men in the world whose ultimate fear is that. H.P. Lovecraft.
This is fucking spooky. Have you heard of the Kobe Bryant conspiracy theory? Okay, you're gonna add all 4 of these numbers and then tell me what you get. If you did the math right, you would have gotten 8,024. Kobe's jersey numbers were 8 and 24. And if you take these numbers and add each number individually, you're gonna come up with the number 41. Kobe Bryant was...
Arnold Schwarzenegger gives an amazing speech in the very, very bad movie End of Days that came out in 1999, which is, take the year 1999, flip it upside down, take off the 1. What do you have? 666, mark of the beast.
41 years old at the moment of his death. This is so fucking crazy. So they died on January 26th.
It's crazy, bro.
Now, if you add those numbers individually, you get the number 9. And there were 9 people that died in the helicopter crash. Now, this last part had me spooked. So the helicopter departed at 9:06 in the morning. And at 9:47, they reported the crash. If you take 9:47 minus 9:06, you get 41. The helicopter crashed within 41 minutes of departing. Kobe Bryant was 41 years old at the time.
I assume this just keeps going like this forever. By the way, you've probably heard that you can prove anything with statistics. Wait till you see what you can do when you just throw a bucket of numbers against the wall like a Jackson Pollock painting, draw random connections between them, and claim that it proves whatever nonsense you just decided to believe that day. It's pretty impressive.
All the rich families, the monarchy, all the presidents, they're all related to these trans-dimensional shape-shifting lizards.
This is actually true. I can't contest this. I mean, it's unfortunate that it's leaked.
Everyone knows about Epstein Island, but have you heard about Rothschild's Island?
Here we go. The second you hear Rothschilds, you know they're going into some anti-Semitic garbage.
I don't even know who that is.
The Rothschilds are like the most mainstream name when it comes to the Illuminati. Everybody knows about them. But yeah, they bought an island off the coast of Antarctica. Why would you want an island in Antarctica?
Why would anyone go to Antarctica?
Why indeed? Why indeed? There's only one answer for that, and they're pointing to it directly. They're getting too close to revealing the occult secrets by showing this pyramid. The reason you want to buy part of Antarctica is because there you will find ancient ruins in which aliens and predators fought and are reconvening for one final battle.
I think there could be like secret tunnels they have built in under there.
Your go-to is always secret tunnels.
There's no other reason for them to have an island.
Penguins?
Okay, they just showed like literally a Jewish come on. Okay, so they're being just upfront. Okay, so Rothschild, absolutely, they're just showing this Jewish caricature from South Park out of context. It's like, okay, you Nazi so-and-sos. Or maybe it was penguins all along. It's possible. This shows, you know, it's like basically like a lot of these videos have been all this word salad or number salad where people are trying to make a connection that other people don't see. Okay. A lot of conspiracy theories I've noticed in just observing people in the real world are a way to claim status when somebody doesn't feel like they have any status. Okay. Racism is similar. Anti-Semitism is similar. Think about it. If you're in a position in life where you feel like you're a failure, you have no status, and you have no actual power in the world, because yes, you can actually get power in the world. It comes with responsibility, and that's why people run away from it. But if you're somebody with no power and no achievements, think about how seductive it is to say, well, at least I know what's going on and you don't. So therefore, I'm actually better and more in the know than you. And that's kind of the psychological function, certainly the whole QAnon thing serves, and conspiracy theories in general. But this video also shows it's like most of these, again, word salad, number salad, it's just a bunch of terms thrown together. But then you'll get ones where some of the terms thrown in are like globalists, Rothschilds, elites, potentially even the whole lizard thing is potentially an anti-Semitic thing. So that's why these things can be so dangerous, because it's all fun and games when you're creating these cartoon realities that don't exist about there's all these evil people out there. Because essentially, think about what a conspiracy theory is. You're saying there's this evil group of people out there that nobody knows about, but I know about them. And the implication is if we can just get rid of these people, everything will be fine. Okay, again, that's all fun and games when it's just a TikTok. But when there's those evil people we need to get rid of and everything will be fine gets overlaid on a group of people, as it has with a specific group of people for many thousands of years, but they're not the only one, it leads to real tragedy. It leads to real tragedy and real suffering and real pain, not fever dream, conspiracy theory, whatever that is.
What is the truth? No one is pulling the strings. Sure, there are those like my friend who might have the right kind of access to the right kind of information. But when events like this happen in the world, the best, even the most powerful people can hope for is a heads up.
This man said no one is in control. The best, even the most powerful people can hope for is a heads up. Then proceeds to give us this long, drawn out, intentional pause. It's almost as if they wanted it to sink in. Is this our heads up? I don't know. This might be our heads up, y'all. I don't know.
Okay, here's a scary conspiracy theory for you. All right, ready? The world is full of barely evolved primates who are all completely insane. And by the way, I'm not talking about a specific group of people here. I'm talking about literally the entire human race, almost all of which is barely, if even, out of the animal level of consciousness. This video is a perfect example because this person has been triggered into an insane world of conspiratorial delusion, which, as we've covered, can easily lead to violence when large numbers of people get involved, by nothing, by silence, by somebody saying nothing. That was still taken as conspiratorial and evidence that there's some powerful group of people out there. That's scary. We live on Animal Planet.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1,000% believe in?
Finland doesn't exist. I don't just mean that the country isn't a thing. There's no landmass. It's just more of the Baltic Sea. But Dylan, I've been to Finland before. No, you haven't. You've been to Eastern Sweden. What about all the people who claim to be citizens of Finland? Also part of Eastern Sweden. They're just told they're from Finland. What possible reason could the deep state have for hiding a section of the Baltic Sea? Fish, that's what. See, around the time of the Cold War, the Japanese were getting into some pretty hot water with the environmental impact of their fishing. So they make a treaty with Russia where they can fish with zero repercussions in Finland. Meanwhile, the Trans-Siberian Railroad, which takes things all the way across Russia over to Japan, by the way, is constructed and stops right about here. Oh, but people are gonna notice that they're just transporting insane amounts of fish. Not if you make the largest Finnish company in existence called Nokia, which Japan happens to be the #1 importer of their products. We have satellite imaging. It's doctored. You think Russia wouldn't have this as part of their peace talks of the Cold War? Come on.
Okay, so this is obviously trolling and a joke, and it's very funny. This one's interesting because whether he intended this or not, it kind of demonstrates a similar rhetorical style. So it's interesting. We've kind of, looked at numerology. We've looked at like this kind of like synchronicity with entertainment industry symbols. These are very common rhetorical strategies with conspiracy theories. But this one kind of touches on. There's a kind of a gray zone, I would say, between conspiracy theories and essentially just leftist critique of geopolitics. And there's just kind of this like wiggle room where people consistently make these kind of Chomskyite arguments where, if somebody says something bad about another country, they'll turn it around and say, well, actually, it was US imperialism and corporations, and here's all the dirty stuff that was going on under the hood, and that's why America's bad and everyone else is good. And it's a rhetorical style that shares a lot with conspiracy theories in that the carrot it offers people essentially is, again, that they're in the know and that other people aren't. So they are therefore special and more intelligent and they know what's going on and other people don't. But it's a pretty lazy rhetorical strategy. And this guy, it does not always, okay, but at its, commonly practiced folk level, it can often use this type of rhetorical strategy where kind of instead of throwing in just numbers and symbols and things like that, they're still throwing in a barrage of stuff, but since it's for a more educated audience, it's kind of just stuff like, Nokia, here's a corporation, here's the name of another country, here's the CIA, and basically they put all these things together and allow the person to come to the conclusion that they're making a sophisticated critique of geopolitics and that they are sophisticated political thinkers simply because they essentially have adopted not a conspiracy theory, but a conspiratorial read of American foreign policy. This isn't just a left-wing thing either, by the way. Recently, the right, including the far right, the European extreme right, have adopted a similar tactic. There's a right-wing thinker in France named Alain de Benoit, or Alain de Benoit, however that's pronounced, who figured out, I think in the 90s, it was very easy for far-right people to get access to left-wing spaces by repositioning their racist argument as in a kind of anti-globalist, pro-environment frame, and similar to the kind of framing that this guy was using humorously in this TikTok. So there's a term in radical politics called entryism, which essentially means people from a very, very radical group trying to gain access to other spaces, primarily more mainstream sources in society, by pretending to be like that group. There's probably an analogy in nature with, predators who disguise themselves as their prey to blend in, that type of thing. That's basically what it is. And that type of word salad, although it sounds very impressive and sounds very academic and sounds like somebody knows what they're talking about, often when you really look, is very, very hard to back up with facts. Not always, but it can be.
There's a CIA document that came out. Everybody just started talking about it now. It's called the Adam and Eve story.
So all you have to do is say CIA, and that somehow immediately is proof that it's real. Okay.
It basically explains how the world is going to end.
Has it been true?
It makes sense. They say the world is going to end because the poles, North and South Pole, they shift every 12,000 to 15,000 years. And once they shift, it causes a giant apocalypse, big earthquakes, giant tsunamis. Once the apocalypse happens, we go right back to the Stone Age. And it said that our first humans, as us, it was 10,000 years ago. So if you think about it, 10,000 years ago, we're in year 2000. We're at 12,000 years right now. And now you see global warming and shit like that. In the book, it says that we are the sixth civilization that came out of the apocalypse. So we just get to a certain point in life and then it just hard reset. And that explains a lot, because remember how you were saying that the Sahara Desert used to be green and the Antarctica used to have forests and shit like that? Yeah. That's what happens. It switches
switches everything, it flips. Yeah.
So now some places turn cold, some places turn hot. That's why they was talking about the flood in the Bible like that. That's probably what happened to Atlantis and shit
I was
like
just
that.
about to say Atlantis. Just
You can't back up a fictional story by referencing other fictional stories. That's not how that works.
It would make sense for a city in the water if the water wasn't there before.
Okay, so that's another word salad. There's a bunch of, theosophical and apocalyptic ideas thrown in there. I actually wrote a whole book about this, the obsession with the apocalypse, John Dee and the Empire of Angels. Human beings have predicted the apocalypse with every single generation of humans since essentially the beginning of recorded history. It's certainly the last 2,000 years. Human beings are scared of dying, and they project that fear of death out into the world and create reasons that the apocalypse is coming. And the apocalypse probably has been predicted for every single year for the last 2,000 years. It never quite comes. Now, pole shifts may be a thing. There may be some ecological reality to that. Maybe that's a question for Wikipedia. And lo and behold, it's a bunch of New Age garbage. It's totally, the Earth's magnetic poles do shift, but we're talking about 1 degree per million years or something like that. The whole idea that everything that they're talking about is total nonsense. It has been, it was a hypothesis in the past that pole reversal events, which by the way are random, unlike what they say in this video, they're completely random as far as people can tell. There was a hypothesis that they might be connected to mass extinction events, or potentially that they had triggered volcanoes that had produced ash, which killed the dinosaurs, that type of thing. No statistical causation was ever found between those two things. And there's zero evidence to support it. It's just not a thing. But here's the thing about things that aren't a thing. They can always have a second life in the world of conspiracy thinking and occult thinking, which is why those of us who are actually interested in esoteric spirituality like yoga and ritual and that type of thing need to be extra on guard for it. So as always with magic, you can kind of see the precarious position that we're in. Magic lives in the liminal spaces. It can live in the spaces of trash culture. It can live in the kind of liminal overlap between science and religion, this kind of nebulous gray zone where it's not quite science, it's not quite religion. it's just these weird esoteric practices that seem to cause changes in consciousness. And isn't that interesting? And what does that actually mean scientifically? Magic kind of inhabits these gray zones. Even by using the word magic itself, it puts it outside of the acceptable cultural discourse. And so magic, the actual magical tradition, often finds itself setting up shop in the trash heaps of society. It could set up shop in the conspiracy world. It could set up shop in the gaming world. It could set up shop in comic books. All these things have happened again and again. Magic has a way of reaching people, even if mainstream society rejects it. Sure, Harvard may say there's no such thing as esotericism whatsoever, but all you have to do is walk into your local head shop where you will find it smiling and waving at you, not in any academic or scientifically validatable way, not in any kind of respectable way, but there nonetheless and accessible nonetheless. So if you should encounter one of these pernicious and unkillable conspiracy theories running around out in the wild, well, first of all, fact check it. Look it up on Wikipedia. Come on, it's not that hard. You have a cell phone, or at least a computer if you're watching this. But then do a gut check, okay? It's like, ask yourself, does it put me more firmly in the driver's seat of my life, or does it simply make me feel demoralized and helpless? In the answer to that will be most of what you know. Now, I'm not saying there aren't bad things in the world or that people that have power don't abuse it from time to time, or quite frequently, actually. But what I am saying is life's too short to spend it on things that make it worse. And at the end of the day, beliefs are tools. This is certainly the magical way to look at it. The beliefs you adopt should be completely up to you and should be contingent on making your life better, not worse. Next, I would simply ask myself, is this true? How do I know? Do you know if it's true or not? Without any research, you don't. So do your research. And let that comfort you if something begins to worry you to the point of distraction. Do your research. And finally, ask yourself, does this strengthen my connections and bonds with other people or push them further away? And this is one of the most pernicious things about conspiracies or conspiracy theories. They are very isolating. People who get very, very, very into the conspiracy tunnel, that like fear paranoia tunnel, can very easily begin thinking that everyone's out to get them or everyone else is in on it. Or they can simply just vanish into their tunnel of their own personal obsessive search for information on the internet. And when they do talk to people, they tend to want to talk about conspiracies, which tends to push people further away. As you might imagine, somebody like me, people tell me conspiracy theories quite a lot. 9/11 was an inside job, to which my response is always the Ali G response. Was 7/11 an inside job? I've heard enough conspiracies for all of us put together, and let me assure you, they're kind of a waste of time. If you're interested in critiquing power, become a journalist. If you're interested in gaining power, become a politician or a banker. Or a magician, magick.me, magick.me. Free meditation at start.magick.me. You could experience magic, real magic, from the comfort of your own couch right now. Go to it. Start.magick.me, the solution to all of your lizard people woes. But I would say that, wouldn't I? After all, I'm a 32nd degree Freemason, a member of the Illuminati, part of the problem. So, with that said, like and subscribe. Make sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what the craziest conspiracy theories you've heard recently are. And best of all, if you can, post some TikToks or Reels or YouTubes or whatever in the comments for me to respond to. It might not even be conspiracies. It might be other related topics to this channel. I'm really, really curious. While you're down there in the comment section, be careful, because the people down there, they're opening some type of dark portal to some other mirror universe that I'm afraid to go down there. So watch yourself. But have fun. All right. Lots of love. I'll see you soon.
Before you leave, I know. Would you, before you leave, in a few sentences, tell us why it's more fun to be optimistic than paranoid?
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious on the face of it. Well, one thing, longevity statistics. Optimists live longer. John Barefoot at Duke University has collected a lot of statistics on that. Optimistic people outlive pessimistic people consistently. If you compare them by sex, by age, by eating habits and diet, by lifestyle, by race, by all sorts of things, the optimists live longer. Also, optimists have more fun. And besides, maybe things are going to turn out okay, in which case the pessimists are killing themselves and being miserable for no good reason at all. And the final reason is, even if everything is going to turn out terribly, the optimists are having more fun before the final tragedy comes. Whereas the pessimists are living in misery all the time.